So hello everyone, my name is Ayushman Nag and I am from Grow Junction. And today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Lakshya Kumar. Hello Lakshya.
Yeah, Ishman, it's good to be here.
How are you Lakshya?
I'm doing well.
Okay. So Lakshya, can you just give our audience a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Lakshay Kumar. I was born brought up in Delhi. I'm right now a student pursuing MBA from IIM Calcutta. I'll be joining Mckinsey Company in a couple of months from now. Just to give you little bit of brief about my background, I pursued my undergraduate from Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies, which is a part of Delhi University. I was a finance major. I have interned at a couple of firms, including Niti Aayog, IDBI Capital as an investment banking intern. So I have that wide variety of internships, as you might call it. And I like to sing a lot. So that's pretty much about me.
Okay, that's a great introduction about yourself, Lakshya. So Lakshya, can you just tell me like how you have been, towards this part of your life, like since from the beginning, like your undergrad or like in school. So let's just say how exactly you landed up here.
All right. How did I land up here now? So I think it started off from my school itself. Around class 11, 12 is when I realized that management is something that I might want to pursue. Now, how did that realization actually stuck me was maybe I was managing some random school fest, or maybe I was talking to one of my friend's mother, and she told me, "You seem like a guy who can manage things properly."
Okay.
And that was the first time someone had complimented me for my management skills. And I thought, okay, that seems like something that I can do. Let me try pursuing that further. And I realized that I might have some interest in economics as well. So that's why I pursued a degree, undergraduate degree called Bachelor's of Management Studies.
Okay.
So my an MBA was obviously a good forward to that. So that's how the positions landed up, all the planets lined up for me to be here.
Great. So, Lakshya, as we all know, that to get into a B school, you need to have like a holistic development for yourself, holistic profile, which basically includes not just academics, but your extracurriculars and everything. So, like we all can understand that to get into a B school like IIM Kolkata, you have to be like fabulous in academics. But then, how did you balance the other part, the extracurricular and the co-curricular?
That's actually a very frequently asked question, Ayushman. So I'll tell you what. I understand that the perception of IIMs is that you need to be academically brilliant to be a part of that cohort, but that's not completely true. There are folks who might not have, from the classical point of view, the best marks out there. Let's say they don't have 90% plus in their 10th, 12th, or even in their undergraduate degree. But there are folks, say, having lesser marks than that, but they have done something amazing in their life apart from that. Let's say there's someone who is a national level swimmer, or there's someone who has worked 2-3 years in a firm and has displayed exponential amount of growth. So when you, and that's what B schools look for. They look for someone who is, obviously someone who's good at academics. That's one of the factors that they consider. But if that's someone who's not good at academics, then what else has he done? In whatever field he has pursued, let's say he was focused on his swimming or the extracurricular part, has that individual being good at it. So if you were good at your specific skill set, then they do pick you up. And academics then just becomes one of the checkpoints for you. So I have tons of friends who have at IIM Calcutta cohort itself, who don't have the 90% plus in 10th, 12th and undergrad, but they have something distinct about them, something that makes them different from others. And that's why they are part of the cohort. So that's how I think folks that are interviewing at B schools judge the candidates.
That's a very well versed answer, Lakshya. Thank you so much for that. But the thing is that let's just say after your undergrad, did you work in any organization, or did you straight away gave your CAT examination and then proceeded further?
So yes, Ayushman, I straight away got into the B school right after my undergraduate. So 2020 is when I graduated from Shahid Sukhdev College, and 2020 is when I joined IIM Calcutta as well. So straight out of college.
So once you started with your CAT preparation, okay, so you need to have certain benchmarks as well, as I've mentioned, academics and all of that. So how was the journey of the CAT preparation itself? Like how many hours and everything, So the students have a notion about certain things. So let's just hear it from the man himself.
again, and this question pops up more frequently than it should, is that how many hours should I study in a day? Right. Let me just backtrack here and tell you about how my CAT journey began and how I prepared, and then maybe we can delve down to the answer of how many hours is the right amount for any individual. So I started preparing in the month of February. That's about 9 months before the exam starts.
Okay.
And I believe that's an appropriate amount of time. That's it's nothing. That's not a lot. That's not less as well. About 8-9 months is enough for the CAT preparation. Now, how I went about it was, I was in my second year, maybe finishing my second year. So the good thing about colleges is that the weekends are free, right? And they generally tend to be free. So I utilized those weekends for my CAT preparation. I joined a coaching institute and then started preparing for CAT. 1 second, sorry. And that's how I started preparing for CAT. I picked up the basic booklets that were there for maths, English, and reasoning, and started focusing on them. So that's how I went about it, maybe solving an hour or two every day. On weekends, maybe higher, let's say 3-4 hours, and the classes as well. So something of that sort. The good thing that worked out for me was the mock tests that I was giving frequently, because that helped me align as to what I need to focus on. Let's say in the next mock test, I get bad marks in maths.
Correct.
So the next week or so, I'll start focusing on maths more. Absolutely. If, let's say, my maths marks improve, but my English marks decrease, that's when I start focusing on English marks. So mock tests are a good indicator of where you're heading, how you're heading, are you going well or not? And that's how you keep on realigning your preparation strategy. That's how I went about CAT. Now, to answer that basic question about how many hours should one study and how should they cope up with, let's say, their work, if they're working, or their colleges. So a very good, the time that you require for CAT is not as much as, say, for other competitive exams like JEE or medical exams.
Right.
Now, the reason for that is because a lot of this is based on aptitude, which means that when you're solving questions for mathematics, no question would be higher than, let's say, a class 10th level, which all of us have studied.
Right.
So what we essentially need to do is revise whatever we have studied. So this takes different amount of time for different folks. And a way that the syllabus is limited, it's focused. So you have 20 topics that you need to do, 20 major topics that you need to do. And folks take time depending upon how effective they are. Let's say I have to solve 100 questions for each topic. That's the general benchmark, let's say. And I might take 2 days to solve it. Someone might take a week to solve it.
Correct.
So it's up to you. You pick a topic, you have to solve 100, 120 questions, and that's when you're done with the topic. So if you can sit at a stretch, then it's 2 days for you. If not, if you want to be, if you want to relax in between, if you want gaps in between, that's a week for you. Right? So the number of hours depends. It may be 2-3 hours a day. I think that's a very good amount of, that's more than generous amount of study time. And I think folks do less than that as well. So I think 2-3 hours a day is decent enough if you're practicing regularly. And do keep on giving mock tests, because they help you align your strategy.
Absolutely. I think that is something that all our audiences, all our viewers will get a reality check that what actually needs to be done and how actually you need to like strategize the approach and not just dive into the multiple hours of study. So that's thank you for that great answer, Lakshya. So Lakshya, again coming back to your entry part of the entrance of your B school. So after getting shortlisted, like what was the feeling? Like you must have got calls from tons of B schools. So like what was the feeling?
I was honestly very happy about this, getting a shortlist, because that means there's some sort of validation to your preparation. You have been preparing for 9-8 months, and then you get all those shortlists. So the colleges actually want you. That's the feeling that you get. It's a good amount of validation, and that makes every individual happy. And so was my feeling as well. But then the phase 2 of preparation starts. So your happiness takes a back seat and the preparation phase begins again. Right. So that sort of thing happened after the CAT results were announced and the shortlist started pouring in. That's when you start preparing for your interviews, you start preparing for your academics and interviews together. That sort of thing happens.
So again, relating to that answer only. So like after the academics and getting shortlisted, what all things that you did that helped you for the GDPI preparation?
Oh yeah. So here essentially I went with a very structured approach as to how I should go about an interview. So my seniors and all the faculty members that are at a coaching institute, what I found, questions are majorly bucketed into 4 divisions. One question bucket is your HR questions, as we call it, wherein introduce yourself, what are your strengths and weaknesses, why MBA, what after MBA? All these sort of questions come into one bucket. That's your HR questions. So I started preparing for them. The second bucket was your academics bucket. Since I was a bachelor's of management graduate, so I was preparing all my subjects of management. So maybe for a BTech individual, it would be technical subjects, whichever he has. For someone else, it would be his undergrad subjects. That's the second bucket. Your internships or work bucket. So for me, I had interned at Niti Aayog and IDBI Capital. So I was preparing for those questions around them. Let's say what my work was, what the organizations are doing right now. For someone who's pursuing work, who has work experience right now, his questions would be different. His questions would be, okay, what was your work in 2 years? How well were you promoted? And what did you all do?
Correct.
So those sort of questions come in the third bucket. That's work experience. And the fourth and the last bucket is about general awareness. That's when they ask you about your opinion about something that's going on in the country or in the world. Like, let's say, what's your take on the Russia-Ukraine war? Something of that sort. These are the four buckets. For the general awareness one, I was reading newspapers. I was constantly discussing with my friends as to what sort of things are happening across the world. For academics, you generally pick up one favorite subject and then you stress upon it. So for me, it was finance. So I stressed upon finance. I read a lot about finance. And the rest of the subjects I was glimpsing through. For HR questions, it's a continuous evolving process. You have to keep on writing on your answers. And then you have to think about what all possible alternates can be added to the answer. And you keep on going through multiple rounds of check with your friends and your family. Right? So that sort of process was being followed in the next, for the last 1 month before my interview.
Yes, absolutely. So, I'll just stick to IIM Kolkata only. So, how was your interview for, this particular B school? Like, was it smooth for you or a little grilling for you? So, how was it? How was the experience?
Fortunately, it was very smooth for me in the terms that the professors and I were professors were very friendly, and they were discussing questions in a manner that you would not expect an interviewer to do so. Right? Not all grilling. So how it went about was that they asked me about why MBA, the basic questions about, as I was prepared, why MBA. Then the question that they pushed upon was, what do you want to do after MBA? Why are you joining MBA? That's good, but what do you want to do after an MBA? What's your vision for that? And I think having a good answer for that, having a vision for that, helped me get to the interview. And we discussed a lot. So I said that I want to pursue consulting after MBA. And then they pushed me upon why consulting. Okay, if you're doing consulting, let's have a guesstimate of sorts. So they asked me a guesstimate as well. A guesstimate is you have to estimate certain figures. Right. I hope a lot of audience members understand what guesstimate is. If not, we'll discuss that later as well. Right. So I was asked a guesstimate as well. I was again asked questions about finance, the favorite subject that I picked, and they asked me what's your favorite subject, and then they asked me about the finance thing as well. And that was the major things, I think, about consulting and about finance. These are the two major buckets that we discussed upon.
Great. So it sounds like a very fun discussion that you had during the interview and everything. So so moving on to the next question for you, Lakshya. That is you had a finance specialization, if I'm not wrong. Like you were into that domain. So then, how did you, or when did you rather, think that consulting is something that is a good fit for you?
So I think it was when I interned at Niti Aayog. It was my first year internship during my undergrad. That's when I realized that maybe that domain. So Niti Aayog internship was more or less consulting internship, and that's when I realized, okay, consulting is the deal for me. Right. I also tried, let's say, getting experience around. One sec. Sorry. Yep. So that's when I realized that, okay, there are a couple of other things which I want to try, maybe around finance. So what I did was I also interned at an IB, investment banking firm, right? And I then measured what I liked. So I interned at a Niti Aayog, which is a consulting-like firm, and then at an IB firm, just to have both the hands and then pick one.
Okay.
And consulting for me was the deal. Why? Because it was more broad, is what I felt. Let's say the discussion that we were having were at a very broad scale as compared to finance.
Right.
And that's why I chose consulting.
Great. So this is Lakshya. I think it's my personal observation. I would state this, and that is suddenly since the last, I think, 2-3 years or maybe 4 years, I have been noticing a sudden spike in the consulting profession. Like, people are going crazy over this particular profession. They are trying to get into it. So what's your take on this? number one is that why is this sudden spike, and number two is that do you feel that consulting is for like for everybody who wishes to be, or is there a benchmark for it?
Right. Let me answer your question about for who the consulting world stands, and then I'll maybe jump into the spike part.
Mm-hmm.
So for consulting, what you need is essentially a basic problem solving aptitude. Now, let's say your family, you have a function, and your family is being asked to which restaurant should we pick, right? That's a very basic question. And then you Ayushman, you pick up a restaurant based on a couple of factors. Let's say how affordable it is, what sort of cuisine you like, what sort of, is there a reservation available or not. So you pick up a couple of factors and then you decide on the restaurant. That's the problem solving aptitude that consulting requires. And this can be translated into a broader scale for firms, right? So I think that if you have that, and that's and people at consulting firms are agnostic towards your, let's say, prior degrees. If they're not agnostic, they just don't expect that you would be using them in a straightforward fashion. Let's say there's no part of engineering or BMS I would be using in the consulting, but just that problem solving aptitude that are developed during my undergrad, I would be using that. So that is, if you have that, I think consulting is a domain for you.
Absolutely.
Right. To answer why is there a spike, I think there's because of COVID and maybe a lot of problems that are happening outside, a lot of the firms are asking for solutions, right? And there are solutions which can come internally from the firm itself, and there are solutions which can come from a third eye perspective, a third eye lens. And that's where consulting firms jump in. So consulting firms have been doing a lot. There has been a lot of demand for candidates, and that's why I think the consulting firm spike has taken place. That's my opinion about it. Plus, I think a lot of the factors worked for consulting was that there was a very humanistic approach towards employees. When I was interning at Mckinsey, there was a lot of discussions about how do you make your work and life balanced, right? You have a lot of counseling sessions as well, which were given to interns as well, so that you can help, so that we can help figure out ourselves as to where we stand right now and how do we want to proceed with our career and personal life. So I think there's a very humanistic approach which a lot of folks like. And that's why also the firms, the consulting firms are developing a lot.
Okay, that's, I think, again, a very great answer, very informative. So Lakshya, since you have interned at, like one of the big consulting companies, Mckinsey, so how was the experience, and anything that you would like to share from that internship of yours?
Sure. So I think from my consulting experience, what I can tell you is that it is exactly how it was imagined. Now, what do I mean by that? So when you're preparing for consulting, you do something called cases. Now, what I mean by cases is that you're given a problem statement and you have to give answers for that, right? And that is exactly what happened during my internship as well. We were working for a private sector bank, a leading private sector bank in India, which was facing problems with frauds. So its loan portfolio was having a lot of frauds. So this was the problem statement for us, that you have to minimize the frauds. Then you go about understanding what the business is, who the customers are, what the touch points are between the customer and the business. You go about evaluating how frauds are taking place right now, what are other banks doing. You go on about evaluating that, then you come up with solutions. Your job does not end here. Your job is to test out those solutions against the market, against the firm. Would the private bank be able to accept those solutions? A, if yes, would the market be able to accept these solutions? So you go about this complete journey from the beginning of understanding the problem to solutions, then to trying to figure out whether these are implementable or not. So that was the complete journey that I followed. And to top it all off, because I was interning at Mckinsey, which again is one of the largest firms, consulting firms out there. There's a lot of internal support at Mckinsey. You have people who help you out with the PowerPoints, help you out with the aesthetics of your Excel's PowerPoint. You have great leadership at the helm of it, and they're helping you out at every step as to what all points you would want to consider. And those sort of things make it very lucrative for any candidate to join a consulting firm, and it makes our job very easy because there are people who are supporting you. And I think the word that is commonly thrown around at Mckinsey is it's a caring meritocracy. So you are with your attitude, but the folks are caring for you as well. So I think that was a good experience for me at least.
Great. So Lakshya, in your batch only, I would like to ask this question. That is, there might have been a lot of cases in which you have seen that people, they got summer internships, but for those roles which were not something that they intended for. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, is that a minus point for them in the future or for the final placements, or is it a bonus, or what is your take on that?
Right. So there are always those folks. So our that side is 480 for IIM Calcutta I'm talking about. And there are
Mhm,
always folks who will get their first preference. Let's say
mhm,
they wanted to go to consulting and they got consulting.
mhm,
There would be folks who would not get their desired choice of placement during the summer internship.
mhm,
Now there are two things which I think an IIM helps you out. Is that okay during the summers, which happens straight when you join the college, within a couple of months you will have your summer internships.
yeah.
A process going on.
Mhm,
Right. IIM gives you a second chance during the final placement. Right.
okay.
Let's say all 480 got placed during summers. We all interned. We figured out what we want, what we don't want. A
Mhm,
couple of a lot of us got PPOs. We accept or reject that, and then again in finals, you get another chance. Now this
mhm,
time you're not being evaluated on your life before Calcutta. That's some part of it, but not the major part. The major part lies. The evaluation lies on what you did during IIM Calcutta's tenure of 2 years.
mhm,
So let's say within the first 3 months itself, you realize you did not land up your desired internship because you might not have the requisite skills or the profile. So
mhm.
that's when you start developing that profile and skills.
Okay.
Let's say if you want to be an operations, you want to join operations, then you
Mhm,
start developing your skills like Excel skills or operation based skills.
mhm,
Start developing a profile in that manner. You start joining clubs. You start talking to seniors around that,
mhm.
and in finals you get another chance. So it's not a demerit per se. It's just that you're given another chance, and you have no one takes it in a negative light that someone did not score an internship in that same domain.
Great, great. So it's basically like like improving oneself at every stage. So I think that's a great answer. Thank you for that. So again,
Hmm.
like for, let's say, for your summer internship or the consulting role that we're talking about, like, is there a benchmark? Like, what would you say that a candidate must have, you know, uh, like before he is sitting for the interview, like certain benchmarks, certain boxes.
Well, that's the part of the mystery that I have not figured out. I think for myself as well. So
Okay.
consulting firms, when they are looking at a CV, there are
Mm-hmm.
different domains that they may like or may not like. So when I see, let's say, a CV of a friend, and
Mm-hmm.
I am asked to judge whether this folk would get a shortlist from a consulting firm or not,
Mm-hmm.
it is very difficult to guess because you don't understand. We are not able to understand what spikes the firm might consider.
Okay.
Let's say for someone like who's academically very proficient, the spike is a thing which is highlight of the CV. The
Mm-hmm.
spike would be, let's say, his academic CGPA during undergrad, during Calcutta.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Someone who was, let's say, a national level swimmer, the spike is in his ECA bucket, the extracurricular bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it depends on how balanced you are. Let's say you are above average in all the sections, and there's one section in which you have a highlight. You're
I like.
excellent in that.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's a good chance of you getting a shortlist. Right. Now, to answer the question, is there any certain checkboxes you might want? Um, I think just having a balanced outlook towards life. Let's say you should not completely focus on academics. You should also have something apart from academics that makes your
Mm-hmm.
profile different. Because when you are at institutions like IIM's, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, you have tons of folks who have institute rankers at both the undergraduate level and school level. So you
Correct.
want something different to highlight your profile.
Mm.
That can come under internships, your work experience, your awards that you got, or your extracurricular achievements.
Okay. Great. 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 So, coming to the next question, Lakshya, and that is like for from a generic perspective, like irrespective of which role a candidate is applying for, what do you think that a candidate's CV should contain? Like like, because is marks the major factor that plays, or apart from marks, let's say a candidate who has got 9 points, let's say, but has not that many of life projects done, or let's say less case studies and everything, and on the
Mhm.
other hand there's a candidate who has like a 7 point maybe, but with like a lot of life projects and case studies and a lot of practical, like aspect and practical knowledge I'm talking about. So which one would you say that has a better shot?
Both. both stand an equal chance, and that's the good thing about consulting. So when you're evaluated, you would not be evaluated just on the basis of academics, or let's say they would not overlook academics completely.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be that you are failing most of the subjects and then you have everything good and still they'll select you.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a minimum sort of benchmark, which is, let's say you are average in academics.
Mm-hmm.
You're an average candidate in academics, you're average in academics, but then you have tons of life projects, you have tons of internships to showcase that, okay, I have not worked on academics, but here is what I spent my time on.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for the academics individual, they might not have enough competitions, but then they can show, here's what I spent my time on.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is important. So you cannot overlook everything. So let's say there's someone who's institute rank 1 across, but has nothing else to supplement his CV.
Mm-hmm.
That also does not look good. So you should be at least average in all the sections, and there should be one spike. Right. So let's say, so I think both the candidates stand a decent chance according to me. And that's the fun thing about consulting.
Great. So I think that is also something that is very informative about the aspirants, because this is also a question that revolves, internally among the students as a discussion or something. So that's a really informative answer. So moving on to the next question, Lakshya, and that is like, can you help understand the dynamics of like a work-life balance that a candidate or the candidates are looking for, or they should have in the future, like in your particular domain? Let's say, like, how would you like do that or have done that till now?
So you're saying, how does one individual manage his both work and life in a nice fashion, right? Especially for a consult domain perspective.
Consulting domain or generic, whichever you prefer.
So I think this question is what I might not be the best judge of this, and I'll tell you why. Because my experience has been a 2-month internship at Mckinsey, and I'll tell you from that experience itself as to how we were able to manage our work and life together. Mm-hmm. Right? And so during that consulting tenure, what happened was that there are firms which keep the weekends sacrosanct. Right? Whatever work is happening, it's happening during the 5 days of the week, the working week, and then the 2 days that are left are for you itself. And that's what I felt during my internship at Mckinsey, that weekends were more or less sacrosanct and there was no work given to us during the weekend.
Yeah.
Even during the work days, there were lots of fun activities. Like every Friday evening, we used to have a fun session.
Okay.
So that the team could bond well. Every morning at 9 a.m., we used to have a call between all the team members so that we can understand what's happening with every team member out there. Mm-hmm. So those were small sessions wherein you could interact and have fun. Right?
Correct.
And the good thing about consulting is that, let's say you have a job that you need to do. Let's say you have a job that you need to do, and you can do it according to your own time.
Okay.
You can, let's say, take a break from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and then pick it up again from 4 p.m. Right?
Completely
it's
flexible.
Just that it's your job. Yeah, it's flexible. You can wrap it up within a span of 3 hours by working straight ahead. Or if you like that you want to take gaps in between, you can work for an hour, take a 5-minute break, an hour, 5-minute break, 10-minute break, then again an hour. Something of that sort. And that's what makes consulting nice. So one story that I heard was that there was a random parent-teacher meeting which an employee wanted to attend, and he could just work away from the office, attend that meeting, and then come back and do his job. That's the amount of flexibility that folks get.
Okay, that's really great. This is also something that maybe our generation or the current candidates or the future MBAs of the world, they are looking forward to this particular thing, which somehow was missing, but they're trying to incorporate this. So it's really great to know that an organization is focusing so much on an aspect like this. Great to know that.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next segment, that is, like, in your opinion, like, what are the few personality traits that might help distinguish you from your fellow batchmates?
So not my batchmates per se. I'll just sum it up in a manner that these are the personality traits that would help make you successful during your MBA tenure and maybe your working life as well.
Yeah.
The most basic one, I think, is that you want to learn. And that's one thing which every candidate who's working for consulting or coming into MBA should have. Now, what do I mean by that is that when you come in MBA, most of the folks here maybe coming from the engineering background, which means that they have studied for 4 years, worked for a couple of years, yet they are at a zero level essentially when talking about specific marketing or let's say other subjects.
Mhm.
And when you're starting to learn, you don't just learn from the teachers, you also learn from the peers that you have.
Correct.
Right. So the good thing about this ability is that you learn a lot, not just from the teachers, but also your peers, from the seniors. And that's, I think, very important. The second thing is uh, communication is very important again in MBA and consulting.
Correct.
How maybe brief you are, how to the point you are sometimes helps. When you're talking to friends as well, how good you are at communicating, how good you are at being able to understand problems. I think that's very important as well.
Absolutely.
And this sort of thing always helps. So being open to communication, being keeping aside your notions and stereotypes that you have, and then listening to the problems that you're facing, and then going for solution is what is important during an MBA consulting life. So two things only from my side: one, keep an open mind, and second, you have to learn a lot and be good at communication as well.
Okay, that's great. So like they say that like MBA is it's not just a form of education, or it's not just a degree, but it is something that it helps you to gather new perspectives because it involves peer-to-peer learning. So like when you went to your B school, so I think from specifically in your batch, the COVID was at its peak. So I think most of it was it like online, I believe.
So what happened for us was that the classes were being held online, but we were called to hostels. So we could stay at our hostels and could attend classes from hostel itself. So fortunately for us, it was not as much online. It was a mix of online and offline, which helped us at least gain that peer-to-peer bond that we have. So that sort of thing happened. And that learning, again, as you pointed out, is very important because let's say we're discussing about a random case around cement industry. There was some individual who was actually working in cement industry and he could provide his insights as to how the process goes.
Correct.
Right? And those sort of things are very important when you are trying to tackle a problem because you want someone who has been there, done that, and then you're trying to understand, okay, this is how it's done actually in the real life. So yes, agreeing with the point about the peer-to-peer learning.
Great. So thank you so much for that. So Lakshya, till this journey of yours, were there like any learning lessons or like any failures in your life which you felt was like more important to you than a success because it helped you grow?
Yep. A couple of failures that I had were around. So essentially, not just academic failures. I think that's the common notion about failures is that you not landing a job or you not being able to get that rank in a specific exam.
Correct.
Because from that aspect, fortunately enough, I've done pretty well. Like I've landed what I wanted as a job. I have got decent marks in CAT as well, and during my during my MBA as well, I've got decent marks. A couple of failures that I felt was that when I joined MBA, I was sticking towards a cohort which is very homogeneous. So all the folks who were from DU had a 3-year degree, who did not have work experience. I had that group of friends. And I realized it later on, maybe 5-6 months later on, that okay, this is a good set of folks that I want to interact with, but I should not limit myself. And that realization, that failure helped me understand there's a lot more to world, and I should maybe be talking to more folks. And that's what happened during the last year, and I'm very happy that I was able to work towards it. I was able to get a lot of friends, talk to them, understand their perspective, and grow as an individual. So I think that's a failure that I would have wanted at an earlier stage, as early as possible, so that I could grow faster and better.
Yeah, I think it was a self-realization also, which I think helped you grow. So thank you for that answer once again. So so now we have almost like we are at the end of our segment for today. So like what is your take on like a Grow Junction as an edtech platform that it is doing in for the aspirants for MBA?
So I have nothing but positive thoughts, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was preparing for a competitive exam like CAT, what I realized was that there's a big diaspora of folks which have little to no idea about these examinations. They don't know who their seniors, who's the right individual to reach out to.
Correct.
And I think this is where you guys are bridging the gap about Growth Junction and any edtech platform for that matter. You're telling folks who are maybe sitting in a random village out in a place which is not accessible by physical means. Everyone has a smartphone these days. Connectivity is nice. Giving them a platform wherein they can reach out. They know what needs to be done towards that.
Correct.
Because you're providing such interviews maybe and everything else that you guys are providing. That's a good thing that I think is bridging the gap between the folks who have the resources vis-a-vis the folks who don't have resources. They're bridging the gap between the two so that they stand an equal chance. And that's why I am very happy that you started this series of asking folks who have actually been there, done those CAT preparation and whatever exams you guys are targeting. That's, I think, very good initiative from your side.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Lakshay. So with this, we are at the end for today's segment. So thank you so much for your time. It was a lovely talking to you. We had a great time. On behalf of Grow Junction, it was a great session. So thank you so much, Lakshay, for your time. And with that, guys, it's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.